Hey everybody, welcome back. Johnny B here with DevSlopes.com, and we are continuing on our merry way building the Legend of DevSlopes. And in this video, we're going to do some pretty cool stuff. We're going to get our hero moving around and turning and having the camera follow her around. So we're going to do some pretty cool stuff. All right, so hope you're ready to dig in. But first, we got a few house cleaning issues to take care of. All right. While I was editing the last video, I noticed that I accidentally unclicked the hero animation for the walking. So I'm going to need to fix that real quick. So I'm going to go into models, go to hero, and we want to fix the walk animation. And so this is just a good little quick tip. If you mess up on one of your animations, you can come back in and edit it. And so what we want to do is just change, make sure we got the loop time checked, and I'm going to hit apply, and that'll save that. All right, so that's taken care of. Another thing I wanted to do was what we need to do is we need to flip our whole world around. All right, so I was going to leave this in for a little bit longer so that we could replicate a bug that I found during development. It's not really a bug, it's just a matter of the way that we have the world set up. So if you look up here, you'll see that we have our X, Y, and Z axes in our three-dimensional world. And the dark colored part of it is the positive direction in that axis. All right, so Z positive is out this way, the direction that the players are looking. Positive X is to the right of the players. And so the problem with that is in this video, we're going to go ahead and make our player move. And so if we're going to be using the keyboard, we're going to be using the traditional W, S, A, and D keys. And so if I pressed W, so I'm going to go ahead and select our hero. If I pressed W from the point of our camera, you would expect the player to move that way, right? But the way that our level is set up, positive Z is actually this way. So I would press W and the player would go that way. I would press S and the player would go that way. I would press A and the player would go that way, and D and the player would go that way. So it would be completely opposite of what you would expect. And so we're going to fix that simply by flipping the whole world around and our players as well. All right, so go ahead and select your sample scene, and we're going to be rotating it around the Y axis. So just go ahead and press 180, and there we have, oh, not 1800, just 180. There we go. All right, so we got our players flipped, or our world flipped 180, and let's go ahead and just move our 4 characters, and we want them to be hanging out over in this area over here. All right, so I'm going to just drag them using the x-axis over here, and gonna grab that and move them over here. All right, so that's looking much better. And you'll also notice that suddenly our landscape looks a lot more vibrant, and that's because now we're looking at it from the sunny side. And so if you check out our directional light here, our directional light is shining down in this direction. So before we were looking at everything from the dark side of the moon, from the shaded portion of it. So now everything is looking a lot cooler, a lot brighter, a lot more colorful. And so let's go ahead and flip our 4 characters around. So I'm going to go ahead and select all 4 and apply a rotation of 180 in the Y direction. And there we go. So now you can see our character is actually a lot better. And so I'm liking that. That's looking real good. I don't really like the red Ranger. So I'm going to select, we're going to go down to our materials and select our Ranger, and we're going to change this back to standard for a second and select a new texture. So I clicked on the circle select for the albedo, and we're going to go with the Orc Ranger yellow. Okay, there we go, and change that, change the shader back to mobile and diffuse, and there we go. I like that. I like that better. You guys can play around with the textures, see which ones tickle your fancy, but I like that one. And you know what? I think that's looking real good. Maybe we can, let's play with the directional light a little bit, and I'll show you this a little bit. We got different types of lighting, directional, spot, point, and area. We're gonna stick with directional, and we can increase the intensity. If you wanted it to be brighter, you know, you can get it all the way up there, way overexposed. I think we will increase it just a touch and increase the bounce intensity just a little bit as well. I think around 2.5 should be fine. And you can make, if you don't want any shadows, you can have it be no shadows, or you have the option of hard shadows and soft shadows. And we'll go with soft shadows here. You can change the strength of the shadows, and I like the shadows. Maybe we'll just reduce the strength just a tad to 0.75. And then you can do some other cool things with lighting, but I think that's looking real good for us. All right, so I'm gonna close that up, and yeah, so I think that's looking real good. Next thing we want to do, I think, is let's adjust our camera. All right, so right now, so what you see down here is the game view, and the game view is shown through the eyes of the camera. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to adjust our camera's location. So here it is right here, and you can see if you select it, you can see kind of the view that it is taking in. Okay, and so I think what we want to do is we'll start with our hero over here where she is. That's fine. And so we're going to move our camera over here. And as I move it, you can see that we're coming into view. So that looks pretty cool. And I think we want to raise it up a little bit. So I'm grabbing the Y axis of it. And then let's have it point down. So I'm going to come over here to the inspector for the main camera, and I am going to change the rotation to, let's try 30. Hey, that looks good. So now we're looking down at an angle at our hero. Let's see if we can center her up just a little bit more, and maybe raise it up. And then I'm going to use the Z to sort of come in a little bit closer, maybe down just a little bit. And you know what? I think that looks pretty good, guys. And so let's see. There's some other things you can mess around here. You can change the background color. You can change the culling mask. You can change the type of projection, whether it's orthographic, meaning everything looks flat, or perspective, taking into actual, the distance of objects into consideration. We can change our field of view to make it more narrow or more expansive. And so I think we'll leave it at 60. And you got a few other things that you can use, but I think that's about good for us right there. And so now we got our camera adjusted. We're looking right at our hero, and I think that we are now ready to go ahead and start moving our character around, all right? So what we're going to do is we're going to use something that is called a character controller. It's a component that we're going to add to our hero. And so go ahead and select your hero from the hierarchy in your scene. And we're going to say add component. And I'm going to type in character and select the character controller. Okay, and you'll see that we get some things like slope limit, step offset, etc. And so what does the character controller do? What it does is allows us to easily do movement and have it be constrained by collisions without having to deal with a rigid body. We are going to add a rigid body later, but for different reasons. And our character controller is not affected by forces and will only move when you call the move function. So basically it's a built-in little function that helps us move our character around very easily. And you're going to see just how easy it is to get our character moving, okay? So what we want to do is we want to go into our assets and create a new folder, because we're going to start a new folder called scripts. Okay, and now inside our scripts folder, select and create a C# script, and this is going to be called player controller. Okay, capital P, capital C. And then we're going to attach it to our hero. So there's a couple ways of doing that. We can grab it down here in the folder for player controller and we can drag it onto hero. Or we can go to add component and come down here to scripts and player controller. And now that's been added. All right, so let's go ahead and double click on it. And we are going to open up in MonoDevelop. And you might have seen in other videos by Jacob and Mark that you can use either MonoDevelop or Visual Studio. MonoDevelop is built in right with Unity, so we're gonna work with it. You can use whichever one you prefer. And so what we're going to do is we are going to just go ahead and start working with our script here. We know that we want a couple of variables, and so what we're going to need is a serialize field. Now remember, we need to make sure everything is nice and private and contained within our classes. All right, so we're going to say private float. And this is going to be our variable for move speed. Okay, we're going to start it out as 10. I don't know how fast that is going to be yet, but we'll start it out with that. Okay, and the next thing we're going to need is a reference to our character controller. So I'm going to say private and character controller. So it's of type character controller, and we're going to call it character controller. All right, perfect. And then here in start, we are going to create a reference to the character controller. So I'm going to say character controller is equal to get component, and the type of component that we want is the character controller. All right, and there we go. So all this is doing is saying, look inside of our this is what the get component is doing, is saying look inside of our object, our game object hero, and get the component that is of type character controller. Okay, so that's all that's doing. And then what we're going to do is in void update, we are going to say we're going to create a new vector3, and we're going to call that move direction. So this is the new variable that is of type vector3, and we're calling it move direction, and that is the direction that we want to go. So it's going to be a new vector3, and that is created by getting the input from the different axes. Okay, so I'm going to show you, I'm going to just type it out here and then we'll go over it real quick. So I'm going to say input.getAxis from the horizontal and 0. So that's the the y-axis. We don't want to go in the y-axis because we're just going to be sticking right in our xz plane, so on the ground, level ground. And then from the input dot get axis and the vertical. And I think that is it for that. So we're creating a new vector called move direction, and we're giving it the input from the horizontal and the input from the vertical for the x and z axes. And then we're going to just say character controller dot simple move, which is a built-in function of the character controller, and you can see that the summary says it just moves the character with speed. Okay, so we need to supply it a vector and also a speed. Okay, so I'm going to say simple move, and I'm going to pass in move direction and multiply that by the move speed. Okay, and that is actually all it should take for our character to be able to move. So I'm going to move this over here, and gotta make sure you save it. Move this back over here, and so here we have move speed as a variable that we can edit right here in the editor. And so let's go ahead and let's play this. Let's see how it looks. So I have maximize on play selected, and I'm going to play it. Oh man, she falls right through the floor. So what's happening here? Well, we have a character controller that implements a rigid body, and we don't have any sort of colliders. We don't have any sort of boundaries on this level. You know, this ground, this dirt, this is nothing. This is pretty much just a picture, pretty much. And so our characters, they will fall right through it. So before we are able to go ahead and do our movement and stuff, we are going to need to create colliders on this entire level so that we actually have something solid for our characters to move around on, all right? So let's get cracking on that. So what we're going to need to do is decide what kind of colliders to apply to each element of this scene. But first thing, real quick, let's take a look at our character controller. And so with our hero selected, you'll see this light green outline capsule, okay? And right now it's centered at 0, 0, 0 relative to our character. So let's bump that up to 0, 1, 0 for in the y-axis. All right, so that pops it up so that it's accurately containing our hero better. Okay. All right, so back to the colliders. I'm gonna go ahead and press save to save this, and let's expand our scene. All right, so we got a whole bunch of items in our scene, and we're just gonna go through type by type and decide together what kind of collider to apply. Okay. So let's see here. We got some barrels. So if you select an object in the hierarchy, and then if you hover over the scene view and then press F, it takes you right to it. Okay. So things like the barrels, boxes. Oops. Okay. So I'm selected it in the hierarchy, pressing F to move to it. I don't really care if our players move through them. It's it's just kind of scenery, not a big deal. Same thing for the bushes. The fences, however, we do want to be colliders. So for the fences, I'm going to go ahead and select all the fences, and then I'm going to select add component, and in the physics section I'm going to choose box collider. Okay, and you can see that it added a green box outline, and so that just added our box colliders for the fence. Now when a player or an enemy tries to move through, they won't be able to. Okay, so next up we have some floors. So I'm going to select and zoom to the item by pressing F again, and for all of the floors, so from here all the way down, 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 down. All of the floors can be simply box colliders. Okay, so we're going to go back to physics and select box collider. All right, so now all of those floor sections are have a nice collider. We have a floor now, so we could already try to move, but these ones here were duplicates, so I think we're going to need those. Let's see what floor stone is. Okay, so floor stone, these we don't really need. Yeah, these we don't need colliders on. Let's see what grass is. Nope, we don't care about that. Don't care about that. All right, so we don't care about any of the grass. For the house, we definitely want colliders, and it's got a little bit of complex geometry, but you know what? I think for houses, we're also just going to do box colliders. So with both of the houses selected, I'm going to press add component and again choose box collider from the physics menu. Okay, so that's looking good. And mushrooms, again, just small things, don't care about. Mushroom, mushroom, mushroom. Let's see what object 534 is. Just a board leaning against the wall, don't care. Rock. Okay, so these are big rocks. We do care about that. So rock 4, 5, 8, 9. So these are all pretty big rocks, look like. So I'm going to add a box collider to these as well. Box colliders, done. All right, now for these stairs. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, so for the stairs, I think what we want is a little bit more of a complex collider. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select all the stairs and we're gonna add a component of type mesh collider, okay? So mesh collider, it'll just more accurately form to the object. All right, so that looks good. Looks good. All right, so next up, let's see here. Where were we? Stairs. Okay, stairs are done. What is ancient stones? All right, so we got this Stonehenge looking thing here. And I'm thinking for this one, I'm thinking, whoops, not 2D. I'm thinking mesh collider for this as well. So that's good, that's done. And sharp ring is this little section down here. You know what? I don't care about that. All right, so now we have tree and leaf. Okay, so you know what? I think, looking at these, we have tree leaf, and then we have, we have leaf, and then we have tree. So tree is the stump part, the trunk, and that's the part that we need to be worried about. We don't care. I'm not going to bother with the leaves because we're not going to be up there. All right, so I'm going to ignore the parts that say leaf, and I'm going to grab all of the trees. So tree 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11, 12, 12, 13, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. And for those, you know what? I think box colliders will be just fine for those as well. So I'm going to do box colliders. Let's zoom out and see how that looks. So it's pretty big for some of these more intricate trees. Let's see if that's going to interfere with our gameplay at all for these. You know what? I think it'll be okay. You just wouldn't be able to go like within this entire area, but I don't think you could anyways. I think that'll be all right. Then for these pine trees, they're just straight boxes. I think that looks okay. So that's all right. That's all right. All right, so next up we have our walls, okay? So our walls are units of 2x2. So it's kind of hard to show here, but if I put a box collider, it's actually, well, I'll just go ahead and do it. I'll add a box collider. And what it does is it adds a box collider to the entire unit. So it's including the part that's along the ground that comes out from the wall. And if you wanted, you could take the time to go through and individually make sure that the box collider only goes up to the edge of the wall, but that's okay. We don't care about that. We don't care if the player is able to get right up against the wall, and so box colliders are going to be just fine. So for all of the wall sections, I am going to add the component of box collider. All right, so those are all added. So now when we look around here, we can see where the box colliders are going to be and where we'll be able to go. And then for all of the corners as well, wall corners, we're going to add component and add a box collider to all of those as well. So now we can see that our whole level is starting to shape up with our colliders. And let's see what this is. Okay, so now we are on wall 02. Okay, so this looks like the rock wall type. So I'm going to select all of wall 02 and the corners and add component and physics box collider. So now all of those have their colliders. And we're just making our way down, adding our colliders. And so floor, so this looks like we're now into our duplicates. These are the ones that we added after deleting a bunch of stuff. So all of these floor sections and all of these wall sections, all of these all the way down to the bottom, including the house, can all be add component, physics, box collider. All right, so now we have successfully added colliders to our entire level. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. And moment of truth, I'm going to go ahead and maximize this. And we're going to see what happens when I press play. All right, so we're not falling through the floor, and check it out. We are moving around. Let's see if we can go up the stairs. Oh, that is so cool. You guys, you wrote like 3 lines of code to be able to make this happen. So, you know, working with Unity definitely has its perks. So there you go. That is pretty sweet. But you'll notice that, you know, we go off the screen and we have no idea where we are anymore. So let's go ahead and fix that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and click the play and let's go ahead and save this. All right, so let's go ahead and fix the issue of having the camera follow us around. All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a new script. So down here in the assets in the scripts folder, right click, create C# script. And we're gonna call this camera follow. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this onto our main camera and click on our main camera and then double click on the camera follow script and open that up. All right, and I'm gonna drag this over to here and let's get started. So what we want to do is we want it so that when our player moves around, our camera is following right along with us. So it's pretty easy to do. What we need to do is just have a reference to our target, which is the hero, and tell the camera to move along with the camera or along with the player. So what we're going to do is we're going to say serialized field serialize field, and we're going to say transform, and we're going to call this target, and that's going to be our player. All right, and then we want a public or a serialize field, and it's going to be a float, and we're going to call it smoothing. It's equal to 5f or so. And so what this is for, smoothing, is we're going to use it here in a second, but it's related to our camera movement. So, you know, if you want, we can set it up to where there's like a slight delay so that when our player moves, the camera just kind of follows it, kind of like it's on a bungee cord. Okay, so that's what smoothing is for. All right, and then in start, we're going to create a little variable here. Oh, well, first we got to create it. So we're going to call it vector3, and it's offset. Okay, and this is the offset between the player and the camera right at the beginning. So in start, we're going to get that distance and store it in a 3-dimensional vector called offset, and that is offset equal to the position of the camera minus the target position, which is the player. Okay, perfect. And then we have vector3 and target camera position. And so now we're creating a new vector, and this is the position that we want the camera to move to. Okay, so we're going to say target dot position plus offset, and then we're going to do the actual movements. We're going to say transform dot position is equal to vector3, and we're going to lerp it. All right, so what lerp does is it's a linear interpolation between two vectors. Okay, and so our first parameter that we pass in is the vector A, our starting position. Vector B is the ending position, and the float t is the time interval that it takes. Okay, so lerp, and we're going to say vector, or we're going to say transform dot position, so our starting point, and then our target camera position is where we want to end up, and this is where the smoothing comes in. We're going to say smoothing times, and of course time dot delta time. All right, so I'm going to save that. And for good practices, remember we want to use assertion. So I'm going to say using Unity engine dot, oh goodness, dot assertions. All right, and so remember, this is what you can use to make sure that we have set things in the Unity editor that are required in our game, or for it to run properly. And so up here we have set a reference to a target, and so we need to make sure that we have dragged our hero into that target slot. And so what we're going to say is we're going to say void awake, and we are going to say assert dot is not null, and we're going to just pass in, or we don't need to do that, we just say target. Okay, all right, so awesome. So I'm going to show you what that looks like if we forget to do it. All right, so I'm going to come over here on our main camera. So we save this, and that should pop up. All right, so here in our editor, we see that we needed target, but if we run it without having put that, then we should get a, oh, let's minimize our, make sure maximize on play is not set, and check out our console. And oh, there we go. We see that we need to assign the target variable of the camera follow script. Okay, so that's because we put that assertion in there, and so that's good practice, because it lets you know right away that we forgot to do something. All right, so our target here is our hero. So I'm just gonna select it from the hierarchy and drag it into target. The other way to do it would have been to select it from the circle select here. All right, so now that looks good. And let's go ahead and play it and see if our camera follows us around. All right, so hey, check us out. We're following. We can go explore the whole level now. So we got what do we got here? We got a house, pretty cool. And you'll see that our colliders are working. I'm trying to go through this fence and I can't go through this house. Our box colliders are all working. Going up the stairs. Let's go see what's over here. Oh no! And we're falling forever. So we have a small issue that we need to fix. We need to set up some boundaries for our level, okay? And also, you know what? Let me just run this real quick again. I think we look pretty huge. I think we're pretty big compared to this level. So let's go ahead and get out of the game. I'm gonna go ahead and shrink down our people just a tad. So I'm selecting the soldier, ranger, and hero. And I'm gonna make our scale 0.75 in the X, Y, and Z directions. And I think that looks a little better. And our tanker, let's drop him down to 1.25 in the X, Y, and Z directions as well. And then I think we look a little bit too far away from our camera now. So let's go back up to our camera, our main camera, and open up the camera selections, and let's zoom in. Let's bring our field of view in just a little bit to, well, you know what, let's actually just move the camera closer, okay? So with it selected, I'm gonna grab the Z and just drag us in a little bit. How about right there? All right, that looks good. All right, I just played, and I think that looks better. Yeah, now we're not quite so big compared to the rest of the level. Now we would fit through doors and stuff. All right, cool. That looks great, guys. So we're making some good progress here. But you can see that we cannot turn. We cannot move. Oh yeah, but first we were gonna fix that running off the edge of the world thing, right? All right, so let's fix that first. So I'm gonna exit play, and so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a pretty simple fix here. We have these box colliders down here, right, along our walls. And I think what we can do is I'm just going to grab one roughly in the middle, and I'm going to, so it's over here. This is the one that we selected. We have our box collider here. I'm just going to set the size to, in the Y direction to 4. So that made it taller. I'm going to set the center to 0. And so if we zoom in on it, we can see, actually, let's go maybe 0 is fine. And so now it's tall enough to block us from falling off. And then I'm going to change the X size by, say, maybe 80. Let's see, how big is that? That's too big. Maybe like 65. And that is actually about perfect. Just a little bit more on the left side, 67. And it's okay that it, you know, goes off a little bit over here on the edge. And that's a fence, that's a wall that our person cannot pass through now. And let's do that on the other 4 sides as well, okay? So I'm just gonna grab one, basically around in the middle somewhere. I'm going to change the height of the box collider to 4, change the center in the Y direction to 0, and then I'm gonna change the size in the, now we're in the Z direction, so Z to say 68 again. And that looks good. I'm gonna flip around to the back end now. gonna grab about in the middle and change the height to 4, change the center in the y direction to 0, and change the size in the x again to 70, and that's fine. And now finally for down here, doing the same thing, change the height to 4, not 42, just 4, change the y to 0 and the z size to about 68. That looks good. All right, so let's run this one more time and see if we're able to run off the edge of the world. Bonk. Doesn't look like it. We are stuck on this island. Bonk. All right, so our colliders are working. So now our cameras are working, our colliders are working, we're able to move, everything is honky-dory, but we cannot turn. And we want to be able to do that because without being able to turn, these bad guys will be able to sneak up on us and slit our throats. But this is running a little bit long, so we're gonna go ahead and work on the turning in the next video. And so we will finish this one up here, wrap it up, and see you in the next one.